So when I say licensed NES game, visions of these probably pop into your head, right? And who could blame you? Everyone from our generation has the PTSD of those awful games. But I'm here to tell you that not all licensed games on the NES are garbage. In fact, here are 10 that are excellent. There's a weird kind of golden age on the NES where we were getting games based on properties from the early 1900s. Like, we got Little Nemo, which was a classic comic strip, and we got Felix the Cat, which is based on silent cartoons starting in 1919. Now, this video game is incredible. This was made by Hudson Soft, so you know it's going to be good. Hudson does incredible work. It is a traditional side-scrolling platformer, which you know Hudson's good at. They are the guys that gave us Adventure Island, after all. And this is just such a fun game. So you play as Felix, and if you don't know who Felix is the cat with the magic sack. He's able to find different magic spells and perform magic tricks, basically. So when you start the game, Felix just has a boxing glove that he attacks with, but as you upgrade, he gets things like a magic shield that kind of goes around him, like stars surround him. He can turn into a plane. It's a really clever game, and it does a lot really well with the property that is just incredibly classic and just dates back so far, and is just a wonderful way to make a game based on a licensed property. Like, this is one of those characters that's just kind of timeless. Like, Felix has been around forever and will continue to be around forever. And I don't know that I would have necessarily gone with Felix the Cat as my choice for what character to make a video game on, but Hudson Soft absolutely crushed it. This is such a fun game to play. Now, complete in box, this is a fairly expensive game, but loose, it's only about $100. And for something that released late in the NES's lifespan, that's not terrible, especially for something as high quality as it is. I loved Monster in my Pocket when I was a kid. I was a collector of muscle figures, I was a collector of Monster in my Pocket, and I was so excited to see a video game about Monster in my Pocket, and when it was made by Konami, that just blew my mind. Now, one of my favorite things about this game, beyond the fact that it just plays brilliantly well, like this is just a wonderful, classic, perfectly controlling side-scrolling platformer that just does so much so well. The way that Konami made this game is they really leaned into what the property is. So every character in the game is one of the toys, and they're all pretty faithful to their designs from the toy line and from the comic book. It's just so good. Like, I love so much about this, and this is such a great way to do a tie-in and to make it unique and so much fun to play. Like, I think it looks fantastic. Like, the design of the game is beautiful. The levels are a ton of fun. They're like really cleverly put together. Like, it's just an awesome experience to be playing as these classic monsters in these huge environments that are versions of things we see every day as humans. Like, running through the kitchen and being able to jump on a stack of plates when you're only an inch tall is pretty cool. You know, and I've said my love of this game before in the past when I did my Konami ranking video, and I think this is one of Konami's better games on the NES, and that doesn't change now. Neat little side note here. I just discovered this when I was doing research for this video just to be able to talk about it, but the Asian release of this game is a ROM hack where they replaced the vampire and the monster with Batman and the Flash, and that makes me laugh. I was a huge fan of the movie Willow when I was a kid, and when the Capcom game released for the NES, I was just head over heels with the idea that this was coming out, because I loved Capcom, I loved the games that they made, and this was an opportunity for me to play a Legend of Zelda type game starring the lead character from one of my favorite movies. And I really love this game. It's truly one of my favorites on the NES. You play as Willow Ufgood, and you go throughout the land discovering different magic spells, different shields, different weapons, and you go to familiar locations from the movie. And the game plays really well, and the music in the game is spectacular. Like, it's one of the better soundtracks on the NES, and I really think it's a lot of fun to listen to. It's just a really great game. It's one that I truly loved when I was younger. It's one I really enjoy now, and I think it's one of the higher quality licensed games on the NES. From a great property, too. Like, Willow was an underserved property that could have, I think, been huge. I'm super excited that we're getting a new Disney Plus series about the universe of Willow this year. Gremlins 2 was one of those movies that I just loved as a kid, and I didn't actually know that there was an NES game for it until much later in life. Like, I'm talking like 2 or 3 years ago. And it's just so well done. You are in a top-down environment where you're controlling Gizmo, and you start off with tomatoes, and eventually you get your bow and arrow, your matchstick bow and arrow. It's faithful. It's inspired by the movie. I won't say it's faithful. I almost did, but it's not faithful to the movie. It's definitely inspired by it. But it's just such an adorable game, and it provides a really good challenge without being just difficult to the point of being annoying or being frustrating. Like, there's parts of it where as you play, you're going to miss timed jumps, but they did so much by adding in things like the balloons that you're able to purchase from the magic shop, where you're going, if you fall into a chasm when you miss time a jump, you're going to be pulled out and you're going to be able to move Gizmo along down until the balloon pops. They kind of thought of everything. Like, they knew the parts that were going to be difficult. They were going to offer a workaround for the player to be able to keep playing and be able to enjoy the game. It's a clever game that makes use of a property while standing uniquely on its own without being beholden to what the property is. It's just really clever. It's a really fun game, and hey, it's Sunsoft, so you know it's going to be good. Okay, I'm breaking protocol here. This is an unlicensed game on the list now, but it's an unlicensed game from one of the best racing game developers in the world, and that's Codemasters. Now, if you don't know the Codies, they have done so many racing games, with the one people are most probably familiar with being Colin McRae Dirt. And Micro Machines, while an unlicensed game, is a magnificent title. It feels like the property. Like, if you didn't play with Micro Machines, they were essentially just kind of tiny Hot Wheels, but they were super detailed, they were fun to play with, you could put like 100 of them in your pocket and no one would know, and it was just really cool to be able to take all your cars with you and play with them. I loved Micro Machines growing up, especially when they got to the Star... Okay, I'm getting off track now, but the video game here feels like how we used to play with Micro Machines growing up. The environments are based on real-life kind of top-down views, so there's a particular level that I really enjoy where you're on a couple of desks where when you go in between desks, when you're going over a chasm, you like drive over a ruler. It's a really creative level design and really creative and really fun gameplay that is just a beautiful implementation of a property and a great way to utilize a license while still making it unique and not feeling like it was derivative from other games. This could have really fallen easily into being an RC Pro-Am ripoff, but Codemasters made something excellent. Before we get to the rest of the list, why don't you pop on down into the comments and let me know what thing from your childhood should have had an NES game but never did. They're tiny, they're toony, they're all a little loony, and in this cartoony, they're on your NES. I love Tiny Toon Adventures. This is such a classic, fantastic game, and once again, Konami bringing the strength. It's phenomenal. This game is just so much fun. You play as Buster, and you're able to kind of swap in as alternate characters, Dizzy Devil, Furball, and Plucky Duck, and each one have different abilities. They all play a little bit differently. I really enjoy this game. It is such a wonderful, kind of underappreciated platformer on the NES that I think people have overlooked. Like, I know myself personally, I didn't really give this game a second look until I saw John Riggs talk about it on one of his videos and say how great it was. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll check it out then. And it's really wonderful. I think this game is something where if you are a fan of classic platformers and you like classic Looney Tunes action, definitely worth checking this one out. It's a fantastic game based on a wonderful animated series, and I just think that more people need to play this one. I love that the company that brought us Persona 5 Royal also brought us the fantastic Wacky Races on the NES. Now, this is a super expensive game. This is a $400 cartridge. I'm not going to say it's necessarily worth $400 unless you are on a quest to complete an entire NES. I know my friend John from Biddy Kong's Quest just recently got this, and this is one of his Holy Grail games. It's truly one of those games where you look at it and you go, why did this not release earlier? Why was this not made more widely available? Because it's just so good. It's not a racing game, despite the fact that it's called Wacky Races. You play as Muttley. You are going through the different levels. It's a classic platformer. And kind of like Gradius, as you collect different bones, you're going to gain access to different abilities, where you're going to be able to throw a bomb, you're going to be able to do a bark shot, you're going to be able to glide across the screen or get extra health. And every stage that you complete, you're going to be fighting one of the different racers from the Wacky Races. It's a really fun game. There are so many classic black box NES games that just don't really hold up, but for me, one of the best, and one of the ones that I go back to very regularly, is Popeye. I love Popeye. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. He fought in the Pacific Theater. He was a torpedo man on a PT boat, and he always told us growing up that he was in the Navy with Popeye, and I've kind of got a soft spot in my heart for the character now. And not to mention, Popeye is just wonderful. Like, the cartoons are great. And the video game is wonderful. Like, it holds up to this day. Now, this is a 40-year-old game at this point. This originally released in 1982 in arcades. It's a very simple and straightforward game. You are avoiding Bluto, you're collecting the hearts or the music notes or the help me's that Olive Oyl is tossing down, and really that's the name of the game. And it does everything perfectly. It feels like Popeye. It sounds like Popeye. It is Popeye. This is as much of a Popeye game as you're going to get, and it's certainly better than the one that's out for the Switch right now. All right, Capcom making another appearance on the list in what was easily the strangest licensed tie-in on the NES. It's Yo Noid! Yeah, we're talking licensed tie-in to an advertisement. Now, granted, this was just a ROM hack. This was changing the main character from Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru to the Noid from Domino's Pizza. And look, if you have never played this game, you need to play it because it's such a fantastic side-scrolling platformer. You get to play as the Noid. I mean, how cool is that? And kids, if you don't know who the Noid is, look it up. I'm sure there's YouTube commercials for it because I'm old. I'm so old. The game is really clever. Like, this is a classic Capcom side-scrolling platformer. There are different abilities you're able to get, and it's just, look, I just really enjoy this game. It's a lot of fun. And even cooler, when this game shipped, yeah, the instruction manual had $1 off for a Domino's Pizza coupon. How cool is that? I would wager that most people who have played Bucky O'Hare on the NES didn't actually realize that this is a licensed game based on a comic book, and it's admittedly an incredibly clever one and one that people know very well based on how valuable the title is now, but yeah, it's based on a comic. And hey, here's Konami once again making another licensed game. You know, for a company that I think of as like the Track and Field and the Metal Gear and the Castlevania company, they certainly did a whole lot of licensed games back on the NES. This one in particular is a very strong title. Now, it is very difficult, but the more you play it and the more you unlock, you're going to be discovering more stuff. So, Bucky is the captain of the ship, and your crewmates have been kidnapped and are held on different planets, and as you rescue them, you're going to unlock them to be able to use in future levels. Now, each crewmate has different abilities, each crewmate has different shooting styles, because this is a shoot-'em-up platformer, and each one is going to offer you different gameplay options. Now, the game is great, it is very difficult. Like I mentioned, it's an incredibly valuable game. This is around $175 loose, and if you're looking at getting it complete in box, you're getting closer to about $800. So consider other options for playing this, but it's definitely a solid title, and it's something that is just really cleverly made. Like, this is Konami at their finest as far as I'm concerned. There you have it, guys. 10 fantastic licensed NES games. I think to answer my question from the middle of the video, for me, it would be Masters of the Universe. I would wish we would have had a Masters of the Universe NES game. Thank you to my patrons and channel members you're seeing on screen right now. I appreciate the support. And if you enjoyed this one, why don't you check out this playlist linked up here for more content like it. Until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.